Jazakallah Sheikh. A few announcements again. जिन बच्चों के जिन वालदैन के बच्चे किरत कंपटीशन में हिस्सा ले रहे हैं, प्लीज़ आप रूम्स में तशरीफ़ ले जा सकते हैं किरत कंपटीशन के. जो अंडर 8 गर्ल्स एंड बॉयज़ हैं उनकी किरत कंपटीशन दिलकुशा हॉल में हो रही है, और जो 8 to 15 गर्ल्स ओनली हैं उनकी कंपटीशन शालीमार में हो रही है. सो प्लीज़ यू मे प्रोसीड. काउंसलिंग सेशंस, जैसे कि मैंने इनिशियली बता दिया था कि यू नीड टू religiously follow page 3, 4 and 5. The counseling sessions are still on in Henna, where our shuyukhs are present right now. So you may proceed to those halls if you need any counseling. Similarly, the Youth Leadership Summit is also on in Ballroom A. So you may proceed to that as well. Jazakumullah khair. Time for our next speaker. Mentoring is a brain to pick, an ear to listen, and a push in the right direction. To shed more light on the role of a mentor and a mentee, our next speaker is a household name for the Livdeen family. A London-born Pakistani of Pushtun descent, an instructor at Al-Maghrib Institute, the founder of Logical Progression and Prophetic Guidance, he has studied anthropology and pharmacy at University of Manchester, and Arabic Islamic law and the Quran from various scholars around the world. Our beloved Sheikh Abu Eesa, and he will be discussing the role of mentor and mentee.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen, wa la aqibatu lil muttaqeen, wa la udwana illa ala al-zalimin, wa salawatullahi wa salamuhu wa la ashraf al-anbiya'i wal mursaleen, Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Allahumma لا سهل إلا ما جعلته سهلا وأنت تجعل الحزن إذا شئت سهلا. اللهم أعنا على ذكرك وشكرك وحسن عبادتك يا رب الكريم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. So I hope you folks are doing well this morning. Jazakumullah khair for coming out nice and early, because I know that Karachi normally wakes up at about 4 o'clock. So it's good to see that some folks decided to make some efforts. And I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make this gathering one of benefit. And by benefit, I don't just mean by your presence here, because your presence here is, to be honest, easy. It's more of a social event. There's food, there's other side events going on, and there's some nice Quran and Qira'at competitions and youth activities and yevo. So it's an easy event to attend. Everything's all gathered together. There's lots of different faces, all the right kind of titles, Sheikh and Ustaz and Doctor, and all the right kind of countries, US and Canada and UK, and you folks get excited by that. The real benefit will come if you, insha'Allah, decide to continue what you've been able to maybe be inspired today to follow. And that is what I want to focus on in this presentation. It's only short, it's only 20 minutes. Normally it takes me 20 minutes to introduce myself. So this should be fun. Khair, in these 20 minutes, I want to put forward my thoughts on the idea of mentoring, or the mentor and mentee, is how the lecture has been entitled. But in actual fact, what I really want to talk about is leadership. What I really want to talk about is the theme of the conference, which is leaving an actual beneficial, real, lasting legacy. That's what I want to focus on. And it will come back down to inspiration. If I'm saying to you that the real benefit from this conference is if you are inspired to move forward, okay, then inspiration, I think, needs to be looked at. What is the definition, or how do we even understand inspiration? What even is that, right? Because leadership, or to be a leader, to apply leadership in general, experts, and from my studies, and when I say from my studies, there are certain things that you pick up automatically, right? Some people have a natural tendency to pick up things. Some people, for example, public speaking. You have so many courses today, how to speak publicly and the different things to say and not say. I never ever did a course in my entire life on public speaking. I ain't got a clue. I don't know whether I'm a good public speaker, right? Just because I get invited to conferences or teach doesn't mean I'm a good public speaker, because I think in the remit of public speaking, you are held accountable to certain metrics, right? Is there an introduction? Is there a middle? Are the folks engaged? Is there a clear path? A structure that then leads you to take away some points, and do you repeat the points at the end in a kind of smart way? I have no idea how to do all that, and I don't think I've ever done that in a talk or whatever. Are you exciting? Are you engaging? Do you make people laugh? Yeah, I can maybe have some fun when I'm speaking, but is it something I intend to do? Do I follow a structure? No. And so therefore, you find some people do things naturally and others have to be taught it. And so there are many kind of management concepts and life skill qualities that today are taught. But in actual fact, if we look to our natural upbringing from our parents and from our scholars and from our deen, we find these as natural skills. Yani we find it as actual something that is part and parcel of what we say and what we do. So sometimes we can overthink the issue. And leadership is one of those things. We can overthink it. We can overthink Islamic principles and the concept of leadership and legacy and mentoring. And that is a danger. And I am aware of that. And I do want us to be careful. But at the same time, there are management experts and there are life coaches and there are people who are psychologists who do actually contribute to this discussion many interesting things and benefits. So for example, to be a leader, there are a couple of things that you have at your disposal. And to be a leader, what is a leader? A leader is someone who lifts up their hands and everyone follows. A leader is someone who you see yourself in. A leader is someone who you feel represents you. And how does that person get to that position? It's either by inspiration or by manipulation. In general, it's either by inspiration or manipulation. The majority of people are using manipulation. And by the way, manipulation is not as negative as it sounds. Manipulation, although it has obviously a negative connotation, although it obviously has, Lala, you made it even worse. Okay. So manipulation, as you know, because of the negative connotation of the word, of how we use it in our conversation, that you're manipulating me, or I feel emotionally manipulated. There's a negative filter, but by the way, it's not always negative. To be manipulated is not always bad. Parents will know that, okay? We are manipulating our children all the time. And mostly because they don't have the mental capacity or ability to be inspired. That's the main reason, because it's not like they look at you and thinking, oh, I'm so inspired, right? But they follow you because they trust you, because you're the only main figure in their life, because you're everything that they aspire to be. Not because you're inspiring them, but because they aspire to be like you. You know, as the saying goes, every child wants to be an adult and every adult wants to be a child, right? And every single thing that you do is like amazing, not because you're inspiring, but because you're doing things that they're not allowed to do, or they can't do, or they wish they could do. So they're being manipulated by your size, by your confidence, by your financial ability. Manipulation happens in many different ways, and sometimes quite halal and allowed ways. So for example, our desires are manipulated. And our desires are manipulated by, for example, companies and brands as a consumer. For example, we love the idea of getting a bargain. You know, I was going down Tariq Road yesterday. It's amazing. The shopping road, Burns Road, whatever it is, the major shopping areas that you have, nearly every single shop feels that it cannot survive in the current market without putting 50% off in the window, or sale, or discount. That is actually going to one of the core values of us as humans. We love a deal. We love feeling that we got away with something extra. And if you know that about people, then you can easily manipulate that. And that's what companies and CEOs and institutions are doing all the time. Emotional manipulation. And sometimes we use fear. And we know all about that, of course. Living in the Muslim countries especially, living under times of martial law, or where the military is very powerful, or where the politics is very divided, then we know the importance of fear from a ruling point of view. And we know that many dictators and tyrants have been able to manipulate people using fear, and that is, of course, a negative aspect. But they still call themselves leaders. And that's the point. Leadership can be established either by manipulation or inspiration. And now you'll realize that only very few people have the skill to inspire others. Right? There's a subtle difference that only the people inside can see. So when a country looks like it's very happy and they love their leader and so on and so forth, like many of the kind of, the tin pot dictatorships that we see around the world, actually what you're seeing is intense fear. The display of pictures and posters of the leader and so on and so forth is not something which is being done out of love and concern, but being done because they know that if they don't show that support, their house is going to be targeted, their family is going to be targeted. So it's one out of fear as opposed to actual love and genuine wanting to follow. So inspiration in of itself is something which is very little, that very few people are able to do. And you will see that in our religion, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala puts forward the prophets. And the prophets were specifically selected because of their skill and their qualities to inspire. They are small in number, and they make us really not just want to believe, but want to follow these people because of the certain characteristics that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed them with. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in the Quran, كُنْتُمْ خَيْرَ أُمَّةٍ أُخْرِجَتْ لِلنَّاسِ, that you were the best of people that came forth from mankind. So it's not referring to all of mankind, because you came from أُخْرِجَتْ لِلنَّاسِ, يعني from the people to the people, a certain nation. تَأْمُرُونَ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ وَتَنْهَوْنَ عَنِ الْمُنْكَرِ وَتُؤْمِنُونَ بِاللَّهِ, because you promote that which is good, you prevent that which is bad, and you believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Umar ibn Khattab, when he heard this ayah, he said to the companions, he said, did you see how Allah said kuntum and not antum? Did you see that he said kuntum, meaning a group of you and used to be? So not everyone and used to be. And if he wanted to say all of us, then he would have said antum, all of you are the best. And so this ayah is referring to those companions, and the majority of the mufassirin, they said those muhajirin, those original adopters, the early believers, the real key role models that we have in our deen, those who sacrificed everything and became an uswa, a role model for the rest of the people who became Muslim, namely the Ansar, then the surrounding tribes, then their legacy remains, then all the followers that came after, and then us today. Those are the original people who are kuntum khayra ummatin ukhrijat linnas. They came from the people to serve the people, and they inspired them. And as Umar said, if that is a group of people at that time, today it's the people who copy their principles, who follow their methodology, who are upon what they were upon. So I ask you, what is the secret of that special generation? Why is it that they were so loved and so followed? Why is it that they did not need to lead with manipulation, but they were focused on inspiration? Why is it that they didn't need fear? Why is it that Umar, we all know and love this narration about Umar, right? Umar radiallahu an, an envoy comes to seek him. He is the Amir al-Mu'mineen at that time. This is after the death of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, and he is now in his imara. He is in Madinatul Munawwara, and the seat of power. He is the head of state, the most powerful, the most important individual. And an envoy wants to come and see him, and they go, yeah, he's somewhere over there. I think you might find him in somewhere near the trees. And when they go closer, unguarded, there he is. He's just lying underneath the tree, asleep. Okay? Asleep. And the famous poem is that you were just, and so therefore you were in safety, and therefore aminta fanimta. Yani adalt, you showed adl, and so therefore because you were always fair, because you don't have this dishonest bone in your body, because you believe in what you actually do, and because you actually then do it, then you are able to achieve security and peace because people trusted you, even if you get it wrong. Even, and adl, by the way, is a subjective assessment. As a judge, when you are trying to establish adl, there's one person who is complaining, the other person is the one who is meant to have taken the right. The right is not so important actually, because if you're following Islamic principles, Allah has always told us to give up our rights. But at the same time, it's a minimum, isn't it? If there is a dispute, there has to be a legal system that at least maintains the possibility of getting your legal minimum right. And that is going to be a judgment call. That's why the Prophet ﷺ said that the judge, the qadi, a lot of people know this hadith, but they apply it to scholars. In actual fact, the hadith was revealed to judges, that if you get your ijtihad, if you make a decision and you get it right, you get 2 rewards. And if you get it wrong, you get 1 reward. This hadith was originally revealed for the judges. The scholars then come later because they are also making judgment calls on the evidences to make a decision on how we practice Islam. But ultimately, when you're making a judgment between two people, there was a couple that came recently in my local community that had a problem, and they both spoke to me independently, and I gave my advice, and then the brother came to me afterwards and he said that my wife is not happy with what you said. I said stuff to him and it was harsh, and I said some stuff to her and it was harsh. And he comes to me afterwards and he says to me, my wife is not happy with what you said because you didn't decide to go with her opinion. I said, so I spoke to the wife. I said, you could have told me that. But you do realize that in judgment, I'm not meant to follow your opinion. I'm meant to make a judgment. I'm not meant to agree with people. I'm meant to make my best decision based upon what I think. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. My accountability is towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So I make a judgment to try and be just. And I might get it wrong. But if I got it right, I get 2 rewards. And if I get it wrong, I get 1 reward. So Umar tries his best. As a flawed human being, he tries his best. But because people know that he tries his best, because people believe in him and trust him, because he inspires people and not manipulates them, then they trust him. And so therefore he was able to be secure. The aman was achieved because of his attempt at adl, not the achievement of adl. The attempt and the belief in adl. So therefore he relaxes and therefore he sleeps. And he sleeps in complete security. He doesn't need guards, he doesn't need anyone, because that is the impact and the effect of living what you believe in. And management analysts, they call this, and if I had paper, I would have drawn this. But I want you to imagine, I'm going to try and create it visually in your mind. If I had this piece of paper here, I have to draw 3 circles. Big circle, small circle, and then a bullseye. Okay, so 3 concentric circles. And this, if you like, is the approach to leadership. The what, or leadership, or organizations, or institutions. So the what, the how, and the why. So the big circle is the what you do. The circle in the middle is how you do it, and then the bullseye, the small circle in the right in the middle, is the why you do it. And most companies and organizations and whatever, they follow this model. So a law firm, we represent clients. How? Because we have the best qualified lawyers who went to the best schools, and they're the ones who always win the best cases. But the why, what you find with the majority of leaders and people and organizations and institutions is that it becomes more fuzzier and more vague the closer that you get into what you actually do. What and how is very easy, very clear. But when you start to get to the why, it then starts to become not so clear. Or it's not so easy to put that in front of the people, because maybe the why is just pure profit. Maybe the why is pure ego. Maybe the why is because you simply want to be the most, etc., etc. The vast majority of companies and organizations and institutions and attempts at good leadership follow this model. They are clearer from the outside, and you might draw the arrow in. Their communication, their presentation is that way based, meaning that the external is the obvious and the easy and the thing that you see most. We sell cars. That's what we do. How? We make sure that they are the highest quality, they've got the best seats, they have auto control, blah, 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 whatever. Why? Profits. At the end of the day, it's a company. We want to make as much money as possible. We are peers. We offer spiritual ease, or we take away your stress. How do we do it? We do it based upon cultural loyalty. Not a religious one, not an authentic one, but cultural loyalty. We manipulate your basic desire and need for spiritual satisfaction or cultural fulfillment because of something that you've been brought up upon. Why? Well, that's the real big question. Are these the people who we see as genuine or not? Is it for the sake of Allah? Is there why the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Who knows? There's a lot of talk about this class of people for many years. Why? Because we're not clear on their why. Because we see so many conflicting situations that make us doubt their why. Because we see them doing things for money. We see them doing things for jah. Jah means their ego, their presentation in front of people. Then you start to think, really, is their why as sincere as you may think? Whereas the top people, the top organizations, and when you have this kind of in a management setting, people like to give the example of Apple. If you look at the successful companies or you look at the successful leaders in history, and certainly the prophets, certainly from an Islamic point of view, but I mean just generally the most popular people that we know and successful people that we know, their communication is the other way around. Their arrow goes outwards. What is not so important and clear is the what and the how. It's the why. Because people will follow you because of why you do what you do, not what you do. And your why is essential. So when you see the best, the most loved, the most trusted, is because you resonate with their why. I mean, I'll reduce the level of the conversation by using Apple. Apple, what's their why? Everybody can make all the stuff that they do, but why does Apple do it? How does Apple do it differently? Their why is, well, we want to challenge the status quo. We want to be able to stand to our principles and be different. We will challenge. How are we going to do that? We're going to do that by creating the most aesthetically beautiful and easy and user-friendly products possible. And you know what? The what? Yeah, we make computers, we make phones, we make watches, we make whatever. Now they're going to start making cars. They've done maps, they've done satellites. You see, the what is actually not so important. What's the result in the community? Buy, 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 buy. Apple event coming out. How much you want? 1,000? I'll give you 2,000. How long do I have to queue for it? 12 hours. Spend the night outside the shop. Madness. The people who are into Apple products, they are completely demented. They are obsessed with it. The amount of loyalty that is created. Why? They don't even care what Apple release. I just have to have it. Because the what and the how doesn't matter. It's because they believe in the why. That's an easy example for you to connect to. Their competitors, the Samsungs, the X's, the Y's, they can make all these MP3 players and phones and whatnot. They can make all these other products. But they can't get that same loyalty and following just like Apple does. And why is Apple suffering right now? Why is Apple, for example, when you see their sales has come down, when you see their cash holdings has come down, why has that happened? Because people are now questioning their why. They're not questioning the what and the how. They're questioning whether this company really does care about challenging and establishing quality and standing for values. When they're seeing their working practices, their profit motives, their obsession with charging their people more and more and more and not giving back any value. So once their why became muddy, it starts to fall down. When you look at the leaders, you see the same. When you look at people who inspire, you see the same. And so as a Muslim, you must also look at yourself and say, the way that I leave a legacy, the way that I practice my Islam, the way that I ensure that my community grows. Because at some point, Muslims realize that it's bigger than just themselves. They realize that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves not the people who just look after themselves, but look after other people, because we are an ummah, we are one body. And those people who do not think about the other people will never be loved by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Isolationists are not loved by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Those people who only care about themselves are not loved by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you just use the same model, you look at the big crashes of recent times, the big catastrophes in company history. Lehman Brothers, for example, in the credit crunch. You see that what that they did was financial services, banking, huge company, incredible profits. Its value was off the charts. How did they do it? They had the very best graduates, the very best systems, the very best everything. The why? Well, because the why was just the profit motive, when the little bit of correction in the markets, when the fitna came, when the bad times came, it collapsed because every single person was in it for themselves. They were building their profits, they were being paid, their bonuses are based upon sacrificing others for themselves. Sacrificing others for themselves. In real life, in community, in the military, you get a medal for sacrificing yourself for others. With Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you raise in status for sacrificing yourself for others. In the financial services, in that particular company, people were given bonuses and raises because of sacrificing other people for themselves. Their why was in question, they collapsed. If your why is not in question, you can be having the worst time possible and people will be with you. Because they just need to know that they can trust you. They don't need to know that you need to be perfect. Because any Muslim knows that we were created as the best creation, not because we were perfect. Because if that was the case, then the angels would be the best of creation. We are one of three key creations. From the jinn and the angels and the human beings, we are the best because we have the decision to either do the what and the how based upon our why. We have the choice. We have the ability to say, I do it for the sake of Allah. My why. What is my why behind everything that I do? Because I want to do it for the sake of Allah. I want to get through this dunya with the least amount of shar possible and the most amount of khair possible and meet Him while He is happy, subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's my why. My how and my what, if I mess it up, the people will forgive me. If they believe in my why. If I make a mistake, as long as I do not lie, as long as I do not deceive, and they believe in my why, then the people will follow. The people will follow. The reason the people will follow is because they believe in you and they trust in you, because Allah forgives people who try their best and make mistakes, because Allah created us to make mistakes. Human beings are not meant to be perfect. It's the way that we communicate and present our brand, our deen to other people. If our why is not solid, you will always be found out. Because truth, folks, and honesty is the cornerstone of our why. And I want to just end with this point. This is really important that you focus on this. If I was to say to you how, public speaking, 3 points takeaway, if I was to say to you, how are you going to make sure that you ensure yourself and your legacy is based upon success, is according to the sunnah, then you need to know, first of all, why you're doing what you're doing. You need to believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in a deep way, not in a superficial way. Because otherwise, if it's in a superficial way, you will contradict yourself. You will contradict yourself like all the companies that are falling down. If your value is not real, it's not genuine, you will be found out. People are not silly. Why is it that people don't like politicians? Why is it that people don't trust politicians? When the politicians are from you, they are your family members, they represent you, they have money, they speak the truth or what you seem to see the truth. They mention facts, figures, they represent you, but people don't trust them. People question their why. People question their why. Whereas the opposite, you look at those people whose why, that they believe in what they believe and they are true to it whatever happens, and they stand for the truth whatever happens, then the results and the wealth and the trappings will not matter. And if you look at the Prophet ﷺ, are you telling me that his good days were better than his bad days? Are you telling, when you look over his 23 years, that he inspired people because he was the richest of them, the strongest of them, the most successful of them, the least affected by them, the winner of them? You've got the sunnah wrong. He was the one who suffered the most, lost the most, got hurt the most, fell the most. But the people loved him because of his sincerity and his genuineness, because they believed in his why. And if your why is solid, and you make sure that you make your how accountable, and you make sure that your what is in line with what you do, so your how and your why tangibly follows your how and your what tangibly follows your why, you do what you say you do what you believe in, then the people will follow you. Your legacy will be left even if you never intended it, even if you had never planned it, it will follow, because people will love you and trust you. That's the sunnah. If you want to understand all of the mess around mentorship and the mentor and the mentee and leaving a legacy, if you have ikhlas for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you will be followed. If you ensure that the people are being represented by a person who believes the same, because that trust which is created, as social animals, our biology is wired that way. We are absolutely in need of trust. We cannot own, you see, trust doesn't work in yourself, by yourself. Trust is, by definition, requires someone else, something else. You need to have trust in the system. You need to believe in the system. You need to believe in your team. You need to believe in the others. So trust is what makes a society great, and a lack of trust, animosity, suspicion, disunity is what breaks it down. That's why the Quranic message has always been to unity. Not because it's a good brand, but because the ummah becomes strong with unity. These are not empty words in the Quran and Sunnah. When you see all of this, what I've just said is just an appropriation of what Allah and His Messenger have told us. Anyway, I've gone over my time, but the point I want to say is that actually making sure that we don't get blinded by organizational bias towards achieving certain goals, and making sure that our what is as marketable and branded as much as possible, and our how is so. Authenticity in the eyes and the hearts of the people is not based upon the what and the how. It's based upon the why. Never forget this. authenticity. People will follow someone and they say, yeah, I follow that guy, he's an authentic person. As asli banda. You know, we say that? Asli banda. Right? When we know it's not because of the what and the how, it's because of the why. So, Jazakumullah khair. That's the end of that. But I have one extra special thing to say, alhamdulillah. You know, Live Deen, alhamdulillah, has been putting on events for a long time. The conference is just a showcase, of course. But it also does study sessions. And you know that I've come a number of times, and I hope to continue to come as well. And that's where we can really get into a subject properly. Write and understand and back and forth questions, so we can really, really get to the root of an issue. And Live Deen has been able to try and has been trying to get a number of people to come. And one of my very close friends, someone who I grew up with and someone who I do a lot of things with, taken a long time for me to convince him, mostly because, not because he hasn't wanted to, but because of his availability. But alhamdulillah, we can confirm that Sheikh Yasir Qadi will be coming to Karachi, inshallah, on the 10th of March. On the 10th of March, he'll be here if you're available in Islamabad on the 8th. But on the 10th of March, he will join us here in Karachi, and he will be doing a series on the Asma'ullah al-Husna. And I don't mean just some Asma'ullah al-Husna, because actually one of the interesting things, the sisters won't know about this, but the lads will, that the masjids here in the PC, the Musalla over there at the front, they have the names of Allah on the wall. And that, of course, in Pakistani culture and many of the Muslim countries' culture, these are names which are memorized and sung and whatever. But in actual fact, what if I was to say to you that the hadith that is the basis for all of those names is weak, that all of the names are not actually authentic, even if they are ascribed into the wall of the masjid, and even if they are sung by the children, etc. But that's the least of the people's problems when it comes to the names of Allah. People don't know how to connect. People didn't even realize that. Why did Allah waste all those words in the Quran talking about His names? What, just for you to sing them, and making that nursery rhyme out of them? They are not wasted, and they are there for a really important reason. So the subject is very, very important, and I don't know anyone better than Sheikh Yasir to actually present upon it. So I hope you guys are going to turn out. I hope you guys are going to support Live Deen in that. And not just when the Yasir Qadis come, but when the local speakers are also teaching, when the circles are happening every week by the Live Deen staff and those that are not so shosha and got the drama around it and hasn't got all the celebrity razzmatazz around it. The Deen still continues, whether the speaker is a big one or a small one. But anyway, I'm very, very happy to announce that he confirmed to me a couple of weeks ago, and I think you'll see in your flyer, conference booklet, the announcement for that. So I hope that you will support that. Make sure that you come. Make sure you bring other folks as well. And you recognize, obviously, that me and Sheikh Yasir are sworn enemies, by the way. I put on this idea of unity. But those people who know will know that I take him down at every single moment, okay? So, I'm not saying this out of love for him. I'm saying that out of love for the deen and for Live Deen. فجزاكم khair. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت وأستغفرك اللهم وأتوب إليك. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله.